They didn't take me seriously at first. I stood in the chamber of the Unified Dominion Council, 27 species represented in glittering fanfare and self-importance, and not one of them looked at me as anything more than a novelty, a diplomatic checkbox, a box ticker from a feral species still licking its wounds from a war we were never meant to survive. To them, I was just a human. Even my placement at the round-glass negotiation table reflected it. Back row, no nameplate, no translator orb offered. I brought my own. I had to. The council floor shimmered beneath me, made of some crystalline polymer that sparkled under the shifting lights of the chamber dome. Every breath I took fogged the air for a moment too long. The chamber cooled to the comfort of the Sarikans, who thrived in near-freezing atmospheres. My fingers were going numb. I didn't care. I wasn't there to be comfortable. Ambassador Kraft, the feathered diplomat from Trascan Prime, was halfway through another long-winded monologue about sector security when he glanced over and paused mid-sentence. He'd noticed me blinking. Humans blink a lot. Dry eyes, dust sensitivity, reflexive muscle twitches. We evolved for Earth, a chaotic mess of wind and light and particulate madness. But blinking in alien company was rude. Or so they claimed. It was interpreted as evasive, as aggressive, as a challenge. And that's when I saw it. A slight shift in his plumage, the kind they make before a defensive posture. He thought I was challenging him. A few snickers echoed down the line from the Jevret and the Nox. The insectoids love a show. They feed off hierarchy tension. Drama sustains their cast minds. I kept my face still, except for my eyes. Blink, blink, deliberate, slow. Kraft stopped speaking altogether. I wasn't there to make friends. Earth had sent me with one directive. Speak soft if they listen. Speak hard if they don't. They didn't, so I blinked again. The thing about humans no one ever understood until it was too late, we aren't predators because of fangs or claws. We're not apex because of brute force or superior numbers. No, it's subtler than that. Far worse. We're apex because we notice things. Patterns, reactions, weaknesses in systems and species and supply chains. Give a human time to observe, and we'll tear down an empire with a whisper. And I had been observing for months. They thought Earth's acceptance into the Dominion was a political win, one they could manipulate. They didn't see the agents we had in place, the encrypted comms running beneath their quantum-secure channels, the pattern recognition algorithms we fed off their cultural broadcasts. They didn't see the threat. Until I blinked. Later, after the session adjourned in what the council would officially call an unexpected recess, Kraft cornered me near the gravity well fountains. His voice clicked in the slow rhythm of the Trasconic elite. You disrespect this chamber. I didn't respond. Just tilted my head and let my expression stay unreadable. He tried again. Your kind reacts like prey, yet you provoke like predators. I stepped forward, just enough to make him flinch. Not a lot. A shift in my foot. A change in the air between us. Then I leaned close enough for only him to hear and said, You're asking the wrong question. He bristled. What question should I ask, human? I smiled, but not with my mouth. Just my eyes. The question isn't why we blink, Ambassador. The question is why we stop blinking. That night, 23 surveillance drones from 8 separate species tracked me back to my quarters. Only 2 survived, and the survivors weren't the ones who got what they came for. I slept soundly. The storm hadn't started yet, but the wind had shifted. They didn't call it war. Not yet. The council labeled it an escalating diplomatic disruption. But that's just how empires die. Slow at first, then all at once. 3 hours after the session broke, half the Dominion's Outer Rim observation stations quietly shifted to red-level surveillance on Earth. Not because of an overt threat, but because I blinked. That's all it took. The unease had wormed its way into the diplomatic bloodstream, and now they were running scared, trying to convince themselves it was just a misread signal. Nothing more. They'd seen a blink. They hadn't seen the knife yet, but they would. My quarters were sterile, not unlike a surgical ward. Cold steel walls. No soft furnishings. No ornamental distractions. A single window offered a view of the black emptiness between the spires of the diplomatic citadel, where starships passed like silent gods. I stood in the center of the room, waiting. At exactly 0200 galactic standard, my wrist implant vibrated with the rhythm I'd been waiting for. 3 long pulses, 1 short. Flashpoint protocol was live. Earth's first strike wasn't kinetic. It wasn't a fleet decloaking in orbit or a virus shutting down Dominion trade hubs. It was a message, for words, broadcast simultaneously to every ambassadorial AI across the Dominion. We noticed you flinched. No name, no threat, no context, just truth. Panic bloomed across the network like fire on dry grass. Within 12 minutes, the Nox sent a representative to my door. If you've never met a Nox in person, imagine a praying mantis carved from obsidian, with too many joints and none of them moving in a way your brain finds comforting. He didn't ask to enter. They don't believe in permissions, only negotiations of space. Your kind has initiated psychological warfare. The Nox rasped, voice filtered through their dry-click translator. Your message violated 23 diplomatic accords. I said nothing, just stared, and blinked. He recoiled a fraction, then leaned in closer, antennae flexing toward my neck like a weapon scan. You were a backward species. Fragile. You begged for Dominion protection. His head tilted. What changed? That was the moment I gave him what none of them had anticipated. Honesty. We stopped needing your approval. He made a strange guttural clicking sound. Alarm. Maybe disgust. Maybe both. You will not survive what's coming, he hissed. I'm not here to survive. I whispered. I'm here to remember who started it. And then I shut the door in his face. 30 minutes later, the Citadel's entire Level 9 communications grid crashed. They assumed it was a solar flare. But I knew better. That was Jane's doing. Dr. Jane Harlow, Earth's cyber ghost. The woman who rewrote half the Council's public history from a coffee shop in Winnipeg before they even knew she existed. Flashpoint wasn't just a protocol. It was a promise. For every threat they had behind treaties and puppet states, we would answer, not louder, but smarter. The Citadel's sensors were blind now. All that remained were biological lies and broken assumptions. We had them exactly where we wanted them. Scared, uncertain, reactive. By the end of that cycle, a quiet memo circulated the Council's inner tier. Only the highest-ranking species received it. Most assumed it was a hoax. The message was tagged, Eyes Only S-Class Threat Awareness. It contained a single still image. Me, standing in the Council chamber, blinking. The attached caption simply read, Do not provoke the human. And below that, in Dominion read, Flashpoint Protocol, active. They call us short-lived. By Dominion standards, it's true. Humans blink and die in the time it takes a carless diplomat to reach adulthood. The Eldrin live millennia, storing memories in crystalline symbionts like libraries carved into bone. The Sarikans have caste historians that stretch their lineage across 20 generations, every moment logged, archived, categorized. But none of them understand what it means to remember with purpose, because memory to them is ritual, a function. To us, it's a weapon. After the memo leaked, everything changed. The Council didn't expel me. They couldn't. That would have made it official. The humans had unnerved them. And once you admit fear, the pack shifts. The Nox would pounce. The Trascan would leverage it. The Keth would smell weakness like rot in the foundation. So they did what terrified empires always do. They pretended it didn't happen. But I noticed the guards near my chambers doubled. That my scheduled meetings were rescheduled indefinitely, that my interpreter drone, Penny, was suddenly restricted from Council-level archives. They were cutting me off, but Earth had trained us for that too. We were the species that clawed meaning from silence, that built civilization in the gaps between extinction events. We thrived in voids. You couldn't starve a human of information. We gorged on the absence of it. I took walks, long ones, through the upper strata of the Citadel's diplomatic levels. Penny floated beside me, muting her word to avoid attention. She didn't ask why we weren't heading to meetings. She already knew. I was collecting expressions, body language, tension arcs between alien delegates, the kind of things AIs couldn't fully model because they didn't feel pressure behind a stare. But I did. I felt it everywhere. A twitch of a Keth's upper mandible near the gravity lift. A Trascan aide that flinched when my shadow passed too close. Even the drone started flying wider arcs around me, hesitant to record my proximity too directly. You could smell fear in the recycled air. And that meant one thing only. They'd remembered something. At 0700, I received a message. No encryption. No seal. Just plain text. Meet me in the ruins beneath level 12. Come alone. Bring no tech. 0. Ambassador 0 was Eldrin, older than Earth's orbital stations. She hadn't spoken aloud in over 400 years. Her presence in the council was largely ceremonial, more archive than diplomat, but she remembered everything. If she was reaching out now, it meant she had seen the pattern, the echo in history. I left Penny behind and took the winding freight lifts down past maintenance levels, past coolant towers and heat bleed exchangers. Level 12 hadn't been used since the last Citadel collapsed 300 years ago, before Earth had even built its first orbital dock. The lights were dying here, pale blue strobes flickering like an old pulse. 0 waited alone in the remains of what might have once been a map chamber. Her crystalline body sat coiled in a gravity hammock, long strands of hair glass trailing around her like threads of starlight. "You've come," she said. Her voice wasn't audible. Not really. It was like thinking a thought that wasn't yours. "You remember," I replied. "Yes, and I fear I am the only one left who does." She extended one long, fractal finger. It brushed the stone beneath us, tracing symbols I didn't recognize. Until I did. Earth glyphs. Pre-industrial. Early 21st century. She had studied us. "Your species has done this before," she said, her voice trembling through the air like chimes. "Once, long ago, in another quadrant. You were primitives then, but even then, you saw the fractures." I leaned forward, heart thudding. "We survived the collapse," I whispered. "You caused a collapse," she said, "by seeing what others refused to, by refusing to bow." Silence hung between us. Then she leaned in, slow and deliberate. "They will try to erase you again, to push Earth back into shadow. But you've lit the signal already. Others are watching." I nodded. Zero's final words rang through my chest, etched like ice into bone. "Do not let them forget. Let them fear the memory of your silence." When I returned to my level, the guards were gone. Penny was deactivated, scrambled mid-process. A data spike sat where her core had been. I plugged it into my wrist. One line of text blinked on the neural screen. "Initiate Stage 2. I didn't blink. I just smiled. By the time Stage 2 activated, we'd already won the war. The rest just hadn't realized it yet. The Dominion believed in power measured through presence. Ships, treaties, orbital rings, and interstellar news feeds. A species was judged by what it displayed. Humans, though, we understood power was often measured by what you withheld. Stage 2 wasn't a missile barrage. It wasn't orbital occupation. It was withdrawal. Earth pulled every single human ambassador from Dominion stations. Simultaneously, silently, without warning or reason. One minute we were standing at galactic round tables. The next, gone, vanished into silence. And the silence? It screamed, because no one knew what we were doing. Had we found something? Built something? Aligned with someone? They asked, but there was no answer. Not even rejection. Not even arrogance. Just absence. And nothing makes a powerful panic like being ignored. From my window aboard the shuttle Sagan's Edge, I watched the Citadel shrink behind us, once the tallest tower of diplomacy in known space. Now, a monument to fear dressed as formality. I had 37 encrypted messages waiting in my personal buffer, none of them from Earth. But that's how we trained. Need to know, compartmentalized. Even I didn't know what Stage 3 was. Only this, we weren't coming back. At least, not the way they remembered us. Over the next few cycles, reports started trickling in. Dominion patrols denied entry in sectors Earth used to police. Trade routes falling apart where humans once quietly stabilized supply chains. Cyber infrastructure failures traced back to unknown code fragments. The Dominion called them anomalies. They weren't. We just stopped holding up the ceiling. And the cracks spread. A Gerrit broadcast leaked from their Hive archive, a private council simulation, showing what would happen if Earth joined the Nox instead of the Dominion. The result? Every single Dominion border collapsed within 4 years. And yet the humans had made no official pact. No alliances. We didn't need to. We had sent a stronger message. You never understood the foundation you stood on. And we had quietly stepped off it. Some species, though, saw the writing in the stars. The Ashel, long-thought isolationist, suddenly reopened diplomatic lines with Earth. The Varen High Choir, known for not speaking to outsiders in centuries, broadcast a single psalm, translated for the first time. The blink is not a weakness. It is a signal. And Earth has signaled. Old allies tried to reestablish contact. Even enemies. Too late. Stage 2 meant one thing across every Dominion channel. You didn't take us seriously. And now they would feel what that meant. 3 cycles into withdrawal, I sat aboard a listening station orbiting the dead moon of Corin 4. The AI running the station, Malcolm, was ex-nav calm, still glitchy from exposure to Dominion heuristics. I've received 6,000 inquiries in the last 90 seconds, Malcolm said. 97% originate from Dominion defense networks. Let them panic, I murmured. And the rest? He asked. I raised a brow. Define the rest. Those are coming from inside the council itself. Hidden nodes, cloak comms, all tagged with one inquiry. I turned fully toward him. What inquiry? He blinked. Yes, we made them blink too now, and said, what happens when the human opens his eyes? I leaned back in my chair. That question had been inevitable, because we closed our eyes on purpose. The blink wasn't just symbolic. It was the calm before the storm. The inhale before the scream. And everyone knew it now. The moment the human opened his eyes again, everything would change. Somewhere beyond Dominion space, Earth's fleets began to move, not in aggression, but in preparation, for Stage 3. When Stage 3 began, no alarms sounded, no fleets uncloaked, no ultimatums were broadcast across Dominion space. That's not how we operate. Earth didn't announce it was returning to the table. We just opened our eyes, and the galaxy flinched. My name is Commander Elias Raine, formerly Ambassador Raine, and when I stepped off the transport at Bastion Terminus, I wasn't there to negotiate anymore. Stage 3 meant we stopped hiding what we were capable of. No more humility, no more performative diplomacy, no more pretending we needed the Dominion. Bastion wasn't a military outpost. Not exactly. It was worse. It was a mirror, a polished slab of Earth's readiness reflecting everything the galaxy didn't want to see. Humanity organized. Humanity awakened. Humanity deliberate. The hangars were full, not with warships, with builders, engineers, terraformers, cargo haulers retrofitted with spinal weapons and starscane disruptors. Every docked ship looked peaceful, until you notice reinforced hull plating and a quiet hum of singularity drives. Our presence wasn't hostile. It was inevitable. The galaxy could feel in their bones. We weren't preparing for war. We were ready for it, and hoping someone would be stupid enough to try. A transmission came in 2 hours after we docked. Encrypted, triple blind routing. But I recognized the cadence of the message. A pulse-timed EarthGov sigil. From Central Strategy. I opened it in isolation. No AI. No backtrace. 1 sentence. Green light. All eyes authorized. The file package attached was horrifying, because it wasn't data on our enemies. It was everything we had collected about the Dominion. Trade manipulation. Biomanufacturing violations. Genetic caste suppression. Propaganda loops. False flag ops trace back centuries. Assassinations of human advocates, wrapped in a lie of accidental exposure to vacuum. We had watched. We had recorded. And now, we were going to show everyone. The first upload was surgical. A Jevra communications node in a neutral sector received a simple packet, proof of Dominion sabotage in the Hressi famine. 10 minutes later, the Hressi walked out of their non-aggression pact. An hour after that, the Ashel disclosed private trade logs showing the Dominion siphoning critical resources from newly allied species. A day later, half the Outer Rim was in revolt, not against Earth, but against the system they'd been loyal to for 1,000 years. And we hadn't fired a single shot. That's stage 3. Not war. Revelation. Truth. Dropped like a blade edge into a system built on forgetfulness. Because if there's one thing the galaxy never understood about humans, it's this. We forget nothing. We hold grudges longer than stars live. We memorize names, coordinates, every bruise, every insult, every scream we swallowed because we weren't ready. Now we were, and the eyes of Earth had opened. There's a saying back home, one we learned after being underestimated for too long. Be careful what you look down on, because it might be looking up at you. That's what the Dominion never saw coming. They looked at us like insects, and now they were feeling the heat of magnified sunlight focused through the lens of human patience and human memory. By the end of that cycle, the Keth had initiated emergency talks. The Traskin pulled their long-range fleets inward. The Eldrin stayed silent. And somewhere deep in the dark beyond Dominion reach, a message was bouncing between Cloak's satellites in Earth's reconstructed relay grid. It read, Stage 4 Wake Protocol, pending activation. And it was tied to a name, one I hadn't seen in years. Not a general, not a diplomat, a civilian. And that's when my heart stopped, because I realized something horrifying. Stage 3 was just a warm-up. Earth wasn't opening its eyes to fight. We were opening them to awaken someone else. And if the Dominion thought I was a threat, they weren't ready for him. There's a man they don't speak of anymore, not in EarthGov records, not in Dominion memory banks, not even in our own fleets. Not because he vanished, but because he was buried alive in myth. The kind of man whose actions become too dangerous to remember and too real to forget. His name was Draven Holt. And long before I ever blinked in a council chamber, he was the one who made the galaxy flinch. I met him once, years ago, before Earth even had a permanent seat at the Citadel. We were cadets, both posted on Luna Base during a disputed border claim with the Vrixi Confederacy. The air was thin, the tension worse. Command was paralyzed. No one wanted to start a war over a resource belt. But Holt walked out alone, across the Regolith Plain, toward a Vrixi perimeter squad, and handed them a single line of code, one that deactivated their shielding matrix and exposed a decades-old backdoor vulnerability in their core reactors. He wasn't bluffing. He had their death in his pocket. And then he walked away. No bloodshed, no bravado, just a man with a gift for terrifying empires into backing down. He disappeared after that. Some say Earth locked him in cryo for what he knew. Others whisper he was offered something deeper, command of a protocol so secret it didn't exist until the moment it was needed. That moment was now. Stage 4 had only one requirement: awaken Draven Holt. No weapons mobilization. No planetary strikes. Just wake him up. And that terrified the Dominion more than anything we could have built or deployed. Because if Earth was opening Holt's eyes, it meant we weren't interested in survival anymore. We were playing for dominance. I arrive at Vault Sigma, 3 under blackout conditions. No escorts, no lights, no AI. Just deep magnetic shielding and stone corridors cut into Europa's bedrock like a tomb for something sacred or dangerous. The biometric lock required blood. Mine. The retinal scan asked a question I didn't understand until it was already happening. Are you prepared to see what he sees? I hesitated, then nodded. The vault opened like a breath held too long. Inside he stood, not older, not younger, just awake. Eyes sharp as razors, calm as a drawn blade. Draven Holt. He looked at me, and I swear the temperature dropped 10 degrees. He didn't ask what year it was, or why he'd been reactivated. He just said one thing, which finally collapsed. I handed him a packet. The whole Dominion truth drop. He read it in silence. Not even his breath shifted. Then he looked up and smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was clinical. Good. Now they'll remember why they were afraid of us. As we left the vault, my comm pinged with a council-wide alert. The Dominion had just voted, an emergency closed session, to classify humanity as a Tier Black strategic risk. It was the highest designation, reserved for existential threats, galactic extinction-level entities. We weren't a rogue planet anymore. We were a force of nature, and we'd just open our eyes. Draven turned to me one last time before boarding the black transport that would take him off the moon. "They thought you blinking was a threat?" he said, voice cold and quiet. He stepped inside. "They haven't seen what happens when I don't." The doors sealed. Stage 4 was live, and the galaxy would never sleep again. They thought they understood fear. The Dominion had faced species that could crack moons in half. Empires that boiled oceans, consumed atmospheres, erased civilizations in ritual sacrifice or raw entropy. But fear didn't come from firepower. It came from the moment you realized you'd underestimated something that had already learned how to beat you. And now, the galaxy had blinked back, not because it was ready, but because it had no choice. Stage 4 wasn't war. It was revelation delivered as reckoning. Draven Holt didn't take command of the fleet. He didn't issue orders or broadcast ultimatums. He simply walked into the shadows Earth had built beneath the stars and whispered to the systems we'd left buried. In less than a cycle, half the Dominion's deep infrastructure began to change. Comms rerouted. Logistics failed. Decision trees collapsed under contradictory inputs. It wasn't sabotage. It was memory asserting itself. Every favor, every secret deal, every broken promise. We had tracked them all. And now, Earth let those debts come due. But the truly terrifying part? We didn't demand anything. We just watched and let the galaxy tear itself apart, trying to figure out what we wanted. I stood on the bridge of the Sagan's Edge, now outfitted as a mobile diplomatic vessel, but the kind with triple-plated armor and an escort flotilla of silent ships. We weren't hiding anymore. We were the silence. A Dominion distress beacon pinged us from the Zarnak expanse. A mining colony cut off after an automated shutdown severed supply chains. They begged us for assistance. They'd never once voted to let Earth join the High Council. Now they asked for our help, and still we said nothing. Sometimes the lesson isn't taught with words. It's taught by the way of silence. And for the first time in centuries, the Dominion was listening. I received a personal message and signed, but I knew the source. Zeril, the crystalline Eldrin archivist who warned me before any of this began. It said only, "The blink has echoed across the stars. We no longer ask what you are. We ask what we are becoming." I closed the message and turned to my crew. "Open a channel to the Citadel," I said. Eyes widened. No one questioned it. We didn't use encryption this time. No tricks. No cloaks. Just one human voice. "This is Elias Raine of Earth. We will no longer play the part you wrote for us. We blinked. You flinched. But now we see you. And you will see us." No reply. Just static. Then, finally, across a dozen sectors, signals lit up. Not attacks. Not rejections. Responses. One by one. Species declared neutrality with Earth. Some offered trade. Others offered tribute. But the most telling ones? The ones that didn't speak at all. They turned off their weapon systems. Because the galaxy had realized the truth. You don't conquer humans. You don't domesticate them. Or contain them. Or frighten them into compliance. You just pray they never decide you're worth remembering. Because when a human finally opens their eyes, the stars blink last.